Alright, now we're going to go over PVC parts and their application with the sprinkler system. And this right here is basically what I use to repair sprinkler systems. The various sizes, of course, but this is also basically what you need to put one together, besides all the pipe. Okay. The first thing I'll touch on is the different types of pipe. Right here I have PVC pipe and poly pipe. And I use poly pipe for my lateral lines, and I use PVC for my main line. I use class 200 PVC at 80 psi poly. Okay. One thing I'll tell you about pipe, if you have a 1-inch pipe, the OD, which is outside diameter, will be the same. Inside diameter will differ from, let's say, schedule 40 PVC versus class 200. Okay. Now I can get class 200 poly pipe too, but the reason why I use 80 psi is much easier to work with. You're able to move it and make your connections a lot easier. The next set of fittings I'll go over are the insert fittings, and now these are the fittings that I use on poly pipe. The gray color tells me that it's a schedule 80 PVC. Okay? This white piece is a schedule 40. So when I'm talking the insert parts, in this case this is 3/4, and this is a 1-inch insert. This is what I would use as a coupler. 1-inch insert by 1-inch insert. I would couple two pieces of pipe together. And anytime you use poly pipe insert couplers, or any type of insert fitting, you have to have clamps. And I'll go over that. So this is a 1-inch insert T. This would be a 1-inch insert by 1/2 inch female 90. This would be 1-inch insert by 1-inch insert by 1/2 inch female T. And now that I don't have one here, but we have 1-inch insert 90s too. On the PVC side, you still use the same female-male fitting application, but on this type, it's glue. So we refer to this as being, it's a slip fitting. So basically, 1-inch slip by 1-inch slip by 1/2 inch female T. This would be called a female adapter. 1-inch slip by 1-inch female threads. This would be a male adapter, a 1-inch male thread, a 1-inch slip. This would be a 1-inch slip T, a 1-inch slip 45, and a 1-inch slip coupler. Now this would be a 1-inch slip by 1/2 inch female 90. Okay. Now these would be what I would use to repair a PVC line. Two different types of couplers. I never use these anymore. Used to use them for years before they came out with these expansion couplers. They do work nice, but they won't take a bend very well. Basically, say you cut your pipe here, unscrew your ends, put your cap on, your gasket on your pipe, like this. Put your pipe in here, and on this side, and tighten it up. You would have to, if you ever use these, best thing to do is grab some Vaseline and put it on the pipe and put it on the gasket. And sometimes I put it on the thread too, because it tightens a lot nicer. These, on the other hand, are expansion couplers. So if I have a break in my main line, I would cut out a section, glue it on this end, and I would expand this out and glue it on this end. Okay? Alright. Now quick, I'm going to go over some of the tools that you need. Sometimes you need a Phillips screwdriver. Most of the time a nut driver, common screwdriver, and pliers. Now these are the tools that you'll most likely not have. Odor clamp pliers. This is an odor clamp. This is what I use on insert fittings. Put it on the pipe, put the fitting in, and clamp it. These come down on top of here, I squeeze it, and it closes it up. These are very quick, very fast. But a homeowner is typically going to have a regular hose clamp. That's where the nut driver comes in effect. Common screwdrivers, you can use them too. Basically, goes together the same way, on the pipe, insert fitting, tighten it down. Now you most likely won't have any pipe cutters like this. But I've kind of found out that I use this for several other things other than cutting pipe. But they're nice. You can cut PVC or poly pipe with it. Just like that. And these two tools here are for the saddle. And I'm going to show you how this works and how we use it. The reason why I use these a lot is they're just extremely easy. A lot easier than putting a T in. And I also, when I want to get rid of these risers for the sprinkler heads, I put these in. Now one thing I want to point out about these risers, I'm not a big fan of them. I'll show you why. Let's say that your lateral line's here, okay? Your head's on a riser. In order to get the right height, you guess and you cut it, and then you screw it on. Sometimes it's a little bit too short, a little bit too high. What happens is, over the years, the mowers run over these things, and all of a sudden, you come out to your yard, and the head's laying out in the grass, and water shoots straight in the air. Now when that happens, that's fine. We put a swing joint on it. This is a swing pipe L. Screw it right onto here. And then I'm going to swing pipe over to the sprinkler head. Because I'll put one of these in the head, I'll swing pipe over to the head, and I'll have a flexible joint. And you don't have to clamp them. Toro guys call it funny pipe, we call it swing pipe. It's really good stuff. And a lot of manufacturers out there, and it's all pretty good stuff. And that way, I guarantee you that once you do this, you will never have to change the head out because of one of these. Because this very rarely ever breaks. If it ever does break, it always breaks here or on the bottom of the head. So one other thing I had mentioned, I was going to show you how a little trick that I learned in replacing a nozzle. Your rotor heads, they typically have nozzles that come on a tree like this. All the manufacturers, they kind of do the same thing. So I picked the nozzle that I like, that I want to use. Let's say I want to put the water on this particular side of the yard. We remember we have that one slot where we can put the screwdriver in, turn it, pick the head up, and I have a set screw that comes up. I take that out. I don't take it completely out. Put the screw in here. Regular deck screw. Well, it works most of the time. It does work. Just gotta get the screw in there better. Voila. A lot of times, once the screw's in there, And once the nozzle's in the head, it's difficult to get it out. So that's in there. Tighten my screw in to hold the nozzle in place. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go out in the field. I pulled in some lines, and we're going to repair a PVC line, which is going to act as our main line. And then I have a lateral line in, and we're going to repair it as if it got broken. And I'm going to have a head set, and I'm going to show you, if you have a gear driven head that quit rotating, instead of digging up a big hole, I'm going to show you how to replace just the body of the head instead of digging the big hole. And I do that a lot, because if you have a nice yard, I hate to always dig it up. And that concludes what we got here, and now we'll move out into the field and show you how to repair a few lines. Thanks.
Okay, the first line we're going to repair is going to be the main line. And this main line is PVC. Remember, we relieve the pressure off the main line by turning off the water and bleeding back the backflow preventer. Be careful digging around the main line, there's always a wire with it. I always like to have a tarp laying around about where I'm digging to put my dirt on. It makes cleanup a lot easier. We're going to use an expansion coupler to repair this PVC main line. We're going to visualize that the main line is broken in the middle. And remember that we're going to have a lot of water when we start cutting this pipe, and we're going to clean up some of the dirt off of there. It makes it easier in the beginning. With our expansion coupler, we got to extend it all the way out, bring it in about a ½ inch, and then we're going to mark our pipe. For an expansion coupler to work correctly, it does have to extend almost all the way out, and I allow myself a ½ inch room in case I cut it a little bit too short or too long. And I go right to the middle of the coupler where it's supposed to glue in. And every time you work around the main line and you do have a wire with it, you want to make sure you don't nick it. And if you nick it, make sure you cover it with electrical tape or something like that, because the wires will corrode and fail at some point. Now I'm going to use PVC cutters to cut this pipe. You can use a sawzall, hacksaw, a fine-tooth wood saw. If you use some type of a saw, you got to remember to always clean the PVC filings off the ends and out of the inside of the pipe. If you don't do this and some of that works its way to the valve, you'll keep the valve open just a little bit. And it's what we call a weeping valve. Just remember, when we make our cut, we're going to have a lot of water. So we dig out from underneath the pipe a little bit, give us some room. I typically use like a 44-ounce soda plastic cup to scoop the water out. And then after I have the pipe cut, sometimes I dig some more dirt out to give myself more room to scoop the water out. Always clean up the ends really good. Remember that if anything's still wet when you glue it, the glue won't work. So you have to let it drain. You have to scoop the water out and have dry surfaces. Always use a good PVC glue and primer. In this case, the primer is clear. You can use primer that's dyed purple, what have you, but the primer serves two purposes. It cleans the PVC and it softens it. You always primer and glue both ends. Then when I put it on, I always give it a third of a turn and I hold it in place. Sometimes the PVC will push itself out if you don't hang on to it. Of course, in the summertime, the glue is going to set up a lot faster. Most of the time I give things a few hours to cure, set up before I turn on the water. And I always try and leave the hole exposed so I can look for leaks after the water's on. Now same goes for the other end. I glue it and push it all back together. Now you would glue PVC fittings and any type of repair with PVC, this is the way you would do it. You'd make sure you had a clean, dry surface, primer and glue it together, and make sure you have everything cut and prepared to glue together, because once it's glued, it's over with. If you happen to make a mistake, you'd have to cut it out. Just like before, scoot it on, give it a little bit of a twist, and hold it in place for just a second, and you're done. That's how you fix a PVC line. Now the next line we're going to repair is a lateral line. In this case it's poly pipe. Sometimes your lateral lines will be PVC. You fix it just like you did the PVC. We're going to use an insert coupler to repair this break. And we're going to use two different types of clamps. One's a regular hose clamp from a hardware store, and one's a Oetiker clamp. With the Oetiker clamp, you have to have the pliers. And a lot of times I use, when it's a little bit cool out, I use a torch to heat up the end of my pipe. You don't have to do that. If you have trouble getting the insert fitting in on one end, you could always use a rubber mallet or a soft hammer to tap the fitting in place. If you happen to use a torch, it does not take very much heat to get the pipe ready to go on, the fitting to go into the pipe. Now sometimes when you work with poly pipe, it kinks, and I'll kink it here and I'll show you. Remember that when you're done making your repair, make sure you have no kinks, that you've pressed them out, and you use channel locks to just squeeze the kink out, and that's all you need to do. Anytime you put an insert fitting together, you're basically trying to squeeze them together and move up and down, and the barbed end on the insert fitting will help scoot the pipe onto the fitting. And I'm always trying to pull my hands together, and this would be the same case with any type of insert fitting, whether it be a T, female, anything. Now every time I use hose clamps, I like to use a 5/16 nut driver. They work a lot better than a common screwdriver. Common screwdriver slips off quite a bit. And now you'll see how quick the Oetiker clamps are. But just remember, if you decide to use Oetiker clamps, you got to fork out about $40 for a pair of Oetiker clamp pliers. And for most homeowners, that's not necessary. And what we're going to do here is we're going to install a sprinkler head. If you know how to install a sprinkler head, you know how to fix a sprinkler head. And I just put two fittings down there, an insert fitting, T, PVC T, and now we're going to use a saddle. You can end up using all three, so if you end up replacing a head, you would just take the fittings apart and insert your swing pipe L, swing pipe in your head. In this case, we're going to install a saddle because most homeowners, they're not too familiar with saddles. This is just one type. There's several types out there. You have to have a couple different tools for this. A nut driver and something that makes the hole in the pipe. Now these are the risers we were talking about. We're just imagining that you have one that's broken, so we dig it up. We're going to remove that riser and put a swing pipe L in. That's that fitting right there. That's a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch swing pipe L. We're going to put our swing pipe on that L and then swing pipe to the sprinkler head. And then the bottom of that rotor head is a 3/4 inch swing pipe L. 3/4 inch male by 1/2 inch barb. Now when we use swing pipe, we always want to make sure we give ourselves some slack, like a little loop. If we go too close to the fitting, you either want to keep the head down in the ground or you'll want to push it out of the ground. So we loop around, we cut our swing pipe, and you don't have to put any clamps on this swing pipe. After that, you set a head. You backfill it, preset it, and if you ever have to change a head out that quits moving or what have you, you can always take the guts out of the head, dig a little hole around the head, take the guts out, and put a new head inside without digging up the whole head. And the same thing applies with a PVC fitting or another insert T. You backfill, and you're finished.